baby, listen to me speak, yeah. No matter what, just let it go.
Pop, persuadable. What's going on, boo-boos? You know I love you. I want to talk about the feaster. Wow, that's what happens when you watch those sorts of videos before coming on here. Just kidding. I gotta stop these jokes. Just call me the gravekeeper because I keep digging myself a hole. Ooh, there were so many jokes in there. Wow, fucking awesome. Now, I want to talk about how I feel the feaster could get a tiny bit of a optimization. I guess you could call it a buff, maybe. But yeah, whatever. Tomato, tomato. That's not the purpose of this. Now, I personally have Feaster as an A-tier hunter. We've seen over 30 people with over 10,000 points last season on Southeast Asia. Yeah, I mean, he's a really formidable character. We've seen him being used in, I think, Southeast Asia or Korea in the finals. I think that may have been Southeast Asia. He's a pretty good hunter, right? We also saw him historically in Koa 2 with Roxin, so he's been used before. He's been buffed after Koa 2 because he was still kind of garbage. And he's good now. He's a pretty good hunter. You go against a really good feaster. They really know how to shut off angles. They know how to cut off chitin routes, right? But there are things that are easy in regards to going against Feaster. He really relies on a good spawn because if he doesn't, it's pretty easy for 4-person comms to rotate. However, some Feasters still have a lot of incredible talent, so they're scary to go against. But one of the things that I've noticed is that it's a lot easier for Feasters. I shouldn't say a lot. I would say that there is a little tiny difference between PC and mobile. Because on PC, it's easier to control the tentacles. You have different camera angles, which allows you to activate tentacles, in my opinion, that is much more difficult activating on your mobile device. Has there ever been a time where you felt like you put a tentacle down in a really good spot and you have like walls in front of you, but they're not walls that like go all the way up to the roof. They're walls that like barricade you in a little bit. Think of Sacred Heart Hospital. And on the PC, it's a little bit easier to navigate your camera so you can see those tentacles over those walls. Whereas on mobile, it can be very difficult. Think of a situation where you put a nice tentacle down and you don't feel like you actually had the ability to activate it when you have tried to activate it. It's really weird with the camera angles. In my opinion, I think that Feaster should have the ability to see their tentacles through walls. Now, that doesn't mean I think that you should be able to see the survivor through walls. What I'm saying is that think of Bonbon. You can throw your bombs down and you can try to calculate where the survivor is on the other side of a wall, and it goes through walls. Sculptor, you can do the same thing. You can release statues through the walls. The problem is that with Feaster, that's a little bit more difficult to do, especially early game. I feel like if you're able to put a tentacle down, you should be able to see it through a wall, just simply because camera angles on mobile device is absolutely hindered. It would still require the same amount of patience and time in order to activate that tentacle through a wall. You still need to judge the distance correctly. So when you put that tentacle through a wall, you have to actually have skill in regards to where you place it. Now, one of the questions would be, well, if you did this, what's the point of having the curse mark? The entire purpose of the curse mark is so you can do that as well. But the other problem with the curse mark is that really there's tentacles that can be anywhere at that sort of time in the map. And I think that that's the problem with his build, is that the curse mark historically is not as good as what it used to be. I mean, that's subject to opinion. Those tentacles used to go a lot easier with that curse mark. And I just don't see the point in trying to level up to get that curse mark to the point where it's different. The curse mark will automatically kind of show an indicator when it's ready to be used. So what I'm suggesting is just your ability to see the tentacle through the wall, right? So when you have curse mark, you don't really have to have the same sort of judgment. You can try to activate it once the button becomes readily available for you to hit. However, when it comes to my suggestion where you should be able to see the tentacles through the wall, again, you're not really getting an indicator and you're not really sure how close that survivor is to the tentacle. So it's more of an optimization, but definitely you could call it a buff if you would like. I just think that one of the problems with Feaster is that a lot of people feel like they can't actually activate their tentacles. Even when you can see the tentacle through the wall, there's sometimes a difficulty with maneuvering, and I understand it takes practice for sure, but that's kind of a hindrance upon the players in order to practice camera angles just to activate their own skill, right? It's one thing if you talk about camera angles in order to utilize the skill so you can properly judge where the survivor is, but the idea that survivors are hindered by that ability based on camera angles to the point where you can't use the ability early game like you can with a bonbon or a sculptor or many other hunters who can use their abilities through walls. I just think that, in my humble opinion, I feel like the tentacle should be highlighted through the wall just so you can activate it when you need to activate it. And again, I'm going to say this for the fourth time. Say if I run across a wall or on the other side of a wall and you have a tentacle there and you properly placed it there and you have no idea how close I am to the tentacle, you have no idea if I continued running or if I stopped, or usually you keep running. My point is that it still requires timing in order to activate it. It's not like the curse mark where the button automatically is there when they're in close proximity. So it's very important that I try to differentiate the two. I think that this would make Feaster even more scary. And again, one of the most frustrating things when I'm playing Feaster is, again, I swear to God that I feel like I could have activated my tentacle and it doesn't fucking activate because my camera angle is slightly off or there's not enough tentacle over the wall to technically do it. But then when I do the same thing on PC, I feel like it's a little bit easier. I would like your opinions on this. Give me your feedback in regards to this idea. Remember, it is different from the curse mark because you really don't see the survivor, so it still requires timing, whereas curse mark highlights when you can use it, even if you don't see the survivor in visual content.